tonight I want to talk about the movie Last Night in Soho. This movie is written by Edgar Wright and Krysty Wilson-Cairns, and it is directed by Edgar Wright. It stars Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy. This movie sees an aspiring fashion designer mysteriously able to transport to the 1960s where she encounters a wannabe singer. But the glamour of the past is not all it appears to be, as the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. So Edgar Wright is used to doing films in certain genres. This, I believe, is kind of his first big foray into a different genre, and I would label that kind of thriller slash horror. I know a lot of people are calling it horror. I think that's a little unfair because it's not horror. I don't know if they're really saying, oh, it's horror because the whole Jordan Peele, hey, he does horror. But a lot of his stuff I would classify as thriller as well. So I would kind of put this movie more in thriller. But again, he's not really used to that genre. And usually when a director tries to move into a different genre, there's usually a misstep. And I feel that this is his misstep. It's not a bad movie by any means. You can just see where it could have been better. So first, let's talk about Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy. They were amazing. I think that the character on the page, they grabbed that character, they got to know those characters, and they played it for everything that it was worth, and they squeezed everything out of it. And I absolutely loved their performances, especially Thomasin McKenzie. She was fantastic. I really look forward to just seeing her career unfold. She was fantastic in Jojo Rabbit. She is kind of what anchored me in the movie Old, and for this movie she really drives this Last Night in Soho forward, and I loved her performance. Some of the shots in this movie are just beautiful. The use of color is just amazing, and I absolutely loved it. There are some elements of this movie that I didn't care for, like the runtime. It felt really padded. There were a lot of instances where there were parts of the story just kind of went on, or they were redundant, and I felt like they could have just pulled those parts out, but that would have decreased the runtime. But it probably could have used it. Probably could have been a better movie without it being that long. The ending kind of ran a little bit long, maybe 5 minutes longer than it should have been. And so, sometimes when you're looking at your watch, 5 minutes is a long time. Especially when you're kind of waiting for okay, we already know how this is going to end. Just kind of do it already. So because of all of that, and some of the stuff I'll get to in the spoiler section, but with all of this stuff, I am actually going to have to rate this movie a 3.5. I do recommend you seeing it. Just for the acting alone is worth going to see this movie. Some of the shots are just really beautiful. Matt Smith was in the movie. I thought he was fantastic. I always love seeing him on screen. He's really good, and especially the chemistry between him and Anya Taylor-Joy is just really good in this movie. Terence Stamp is in this movie, but I felt like he's just kind of wasted in the movie. Almost like they just wanted to say, and Terence Stamp. Like maybe somebody knew him, said, hey, I can get him in this movie. And so they threw him in the movie. I don't know, he just seems kind of, like maybe he didn't really know what type of film he was doing. He was good for some of the parts he was in, but yeah, I just felt like he was a little out of place in this movie. The other actors really, kind of set their style, and I don't know if they just wanted to pull a piece of past in there. That's kind of what it felt like he was there for. But I just think kind of wrong actor for this genre of movie. Because he's a fantastic actor. Nobody will ever be able to play Zod like he did. So he's a really good actor. But I don't know. Sometimes scripts just don't match actors very well. Or sometimes the characters they play just don't really match them that well. So I'm not sure what happened there. But, now we will go into spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, and you do not want to know spoilers, then you need to stop the video here. And we will move on into the spoiler section. So this is your last chance. Stop it right here, and then come back after you've seen the movie. Okay. everybody is here that wants to see spoilers. First and foremost, at the beginning, where we have established that she can maybe see ghosts, in the reflection, she can see her mom. Her mom is dead in the movie, and her grandmother says something like, did you see her again? So we're already being laid out these breadcrumbs. The problem I had a lot with the movie, and the reason I rated it a 3.5, is they didn't really go into the rules of how she can see ghosts or why she can see ghosts. Of course, feel free. You don't have to lay out these ground rules. But then there's sometimes where it happens where you're just like, well, why is it happening now? Why didn't it happen then? You just kind of want to know the rules when you're going in, because otherwise it's just kind of sporadic. A lot of the scare moments that are brought in are jump scares. And I feel like they're just kind of, it's a cheap way to scare, especially considering the movie really does a good job of driving up tension. So I don't know why you had to use the jump. I mean, one or two is fine, but I mean, there were multiple jump scares in this movie just to break tension that you were already building. And so you give a jump scare, and then, but you continue with the tension. Like, that's supposed to be kind of the release of tension, right? So that kind of cheapened it a little bit and kind of brought it down for me. I thought that her reasoning for wanting to go to London was a little weak. So here's our inciting incident. Really, hey, I'm going. But there was no real, like, why. Just the fact that I got to do this for you and Mom and me. And so, I don't know. That was a little weak. But you got to get her there somehow. So, this is as good as any, I guess. Obviously, she is able to see ghosts somehow. She's being haunted. But it's being pushed in the movie that it's a mental illness. But then at the end, we're not sure, is it a mental illness or is it just her being haunted? Like, which one is it? Did her mom have this gift and she used it and couldn't handle it? I don't know. Again, it kind of suffers from not really laying out the ground rules. So we don't really know why she's able to do this or how she's able to control it. I mean, maybe she doesn't know how to control it, and that's fine. But again, us as an audience, we should know something, or we want to know something, right? So I felt like that was a little weak in the story. So it just really, it could have been better if you could have laid this out. The ending, they kind of, hit you over the head with, oh, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Sandy, she didn't die. You've been living with her this whole time. She's the one that's been killing all these people, and that's why they don't have faces, and just all these things. But like, it's never foreshadowed in the story. It just kind of lays it right over. Now you can kind of predict it, like this is what's going to be, this is what's coming. But usually there's a little bit of foreshadowing in there. And just these lines of like, oh, there's lots of girls that have died up there. Oh, I guess she did die up there because, she died 100 times. And so it's just kind of weak dialogue, especially at the end when the two are talking and, they're just basically expositioning all of this out to us. I don't know. It just, again, it felt a little weak. The ending was pretty weak. It just kind of seemed to drag on with all these hands busting up out of the floor and trying to stop her from getting to the phone, just for them to break out and grab the phone to hand it to her and say, help us. Why are you trying to stop her to begin with? I mean, you can't even reason that they've all been there trying to stop her from getting to places, but you've been wanting her to help you this whole time. It just doesn't make any sense. Again, a lot of this was played for scares, so there it is. It gets a little annoying at the end, so it kind of stops. Well, it kind of stops being scary and starts being cumbersome at some point. But again, it's a decent movie. It's his first foray. Edgar Wright's first foray into horror or thriller, whichever genre you want to put this movie in. So I think he did a decent job. It's definitely passable. I think that those jump scares will definitely scare some people, but it's not really a scary movie. It's really more of like a whodunit mystery, is really what it ends up kind of becoming. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree or not. I am always curious to see what other people's opinions are. So I would love to hear, why you think I'm wrong, or if you agree with me, because it's always fun, right? And then we can kind of talk about it. Even if you don't agree with me, it's fun. Let's talk about it. Let's go. Maybe you have seen a lot of movies in this genre and say, well, no, he did a perfectly fine job with this movie. But perfectly fine isn't great, so let's establish that. I mean, he got the 3-act structure pretty good. He's great at writing scripts. I just feel like it was a little clunky. It's just a little clunky. Act 1 to Act 2 was kind of, like, it was pretty weak. But yeah. So make sure you like, subscribe, and I will talk to you later.